guys, welcome to Better Bachelor. My name is Joker with a face for radio and a voice for print. As you guys know, if you saw this story where a Black Hawk helicopter flew into a private, well, not a private, but a passenger plane in Washington, D.C., it was a military training exercise. It crashed smack dab into the side of a passenger plane, ending all 67 passengers and the 3 military members. And almost immediately, many of us, myself included, on Twitter, started talking about, there's DEI and some female pilot and community notes, and people were getting in arguments. Oh, the woman wasn't really at fault, and actually is. Well, come to find out, guess what? You guessed it, woman at fault. And it's not just that the woman was at fault. It was that she, in the final moments, her co-pilot, a male, she was actually getting her certification or her refresher course. And he, even though he was the co-pilot, was the instructor in the situation. And she was flying the Black Hawk. And come to find out, it turns he gave her instructions and she didn't listen. And that was that. And next thing you know, there's 70 people at the bottom of the Potomac. This was originally written on New York Times. And of course, I don't pay money to the New York Times because I'm sane and not an idiot. But I found an exact scrape of the story. And this is what I found. I'm actually not going to read from this story. I'm going to be reading from a shorter summary. But this is what I find so interesting in all of this. Is the way, now everything here, even though this comes from DNYUZ, which makes me think of D's nuts, even though that's not right. And they leave it to the last paragraph. About the time you're so bored of reading this article, you've moved on. But at least New York Times did finally report what happens. According to friends and people familiar with the crash investigation, which included autopsies performed and log reviews, 2 seconds after the controllers cut out instruction about passing behind the jet, Warrant Officer Eves, the man telling her what was going on, or advising her what was going on, affirming for the second time that the Black Hawk saw the traffic. He said, Pat 25 has the aircraft in sight. Request visual separation, he said. VizSep approved, the controller replied. It was their last communication. The Black Hawk was 15 seconds away from crossing paths with the jet. Warrant Officer Eves, the co-pilot, again, giving her instructions, then turned his attention to Captain Lobach. He told her he believed the air traffic control wanted them to turn left toward the East River bank. Turning left would have opened up more space between the helicopter and Flight 5342, which was heading for runway 33 at an altitude of roughly 300 feet. She did not turn left. That's it. That's the last story. He advised, hey, we're 15 seconds away from hitting this thing. You should turn left. She didn't turn left. Many people have also said through this entire thing, well, it could also be the tower's fault that they didn't communicate this in enough advanced time, right? And even if you do say, okay, well, this is due to tower error, and it's from the FAA's error for the people that were working in the tower giving commands to this. Well, this is from January 14th of last year, a full year ago. FAA's diversity push includes focus on hiring people with severe intellectual and psychiatric disabilities. The FAA said people with severe disabilities are most underrepresented segment of the federal workforce. Now, you can say, well, they're probably not the ones in the tower. They could have had another job. How do we know? See, with DEI and all this stuff, everything has to be represented equally. Everything has to be on even par. It doesn't matter your skills. It doesn't matter your job set or your abilities. What matters is, I don't know, your specialness, your skin color, your LGHD TV status, whatever else. So either way, you could, if you want to blame it on the FAA, okay, fine. But they were hiring people that shouldn't have been in the job doing what they did. And this is from the New York Post. This is kind of a summary of everything, and it's much shorter than the full, half-hour read that the New York Post put out. Army Black Hawk pilot in D.C. crash failed to heed flight instructor's command 15 seconds before the collision that ended 70 people's lives, or 67, I guess. Maybe I was thinking 67 plus the 3 on the Black Hawk, but maybe it's 67 in total. The Army Black Hawk pilot involved in the Washington, D.C. plane crash failed to heed her flight instructor's warning just 15 seconds before the crash that killed 67 people, according to a new report. Moments before the deadly January 29th crash near Reagan International Airport, Captain Rebecca Lobach missed an order from co-pilot Andrew Eves, who was overseeing her training mission to change course and avoid the descending American Airlines jet, the New York Times reported. Along with the error, officials found that the pilots stepped on some of their air traffic controllers' instructions, meaning they accidentally cut him off by pressing the button on the radio in the Black Hawk, and likely missed important information. So if you guys have ever used radio, I have, because I was in the military, but even CB radio is when you key the mic, it shuts off the audio coming through the speaker so you don't get a feedback loop. They say, here's the picture of the pilot, of course, shocking. A key moment occurred around 8:46 when Eves requested and received approval for the helicopter pilots to use their own visuals instead of air traffic control to avoid other air traffic. The move is common practice to speed things up, but of course comes with the risk of more human error. During that moment, investigators believe Eves and Lobach, the female pilot, and Eves, the instructor giving her the information, failed to hear that American Airlines pilot was circling because one of them was pressing the microphone key to speak to air traffic control when the words came through. Just 20 seconds before the crash occurred, the air traffic controller asked the helicopter if it spotted American Airlines Flight 5342, which was coming up on runway 33 where the chopper was approaching. Pat 25, do you have CRJ in sight? He asked, I guess maybe the traffic controller. That was the last communication between the plane and the air traffic controller. Technology on the Black Hawk that would have allowed air traffic control to better track the helicopter was also found to be turned off that day. Common protocol if the training mission had been for real. Brigadier General Matthew Brahman, the Army's Director of Aviation, said it was clear that multiple factors contributed to the crash. Now, let me ask you something. I've been in, again, the military, and I've done training, and there's things that we did called live fire exercises. And that is where our instructors, we're all down in a dugout, almost like a football field, and it's dug out, and it's about 30 feet below where the instructors are. And we're down there crawling in the mud, and they have little, I don't know what you call them, but they're little canisters. They blow smoke and, I don't know, black powder into the air, which simulates something exploding next to you. It gives you that kind of that body feel of the boom right next to you. And in the meantime, they're firing rounds up above us of real ammunition so you can hear what it sounds like, so you can get used to kind of what it feels like to crawl in mud and trenches. And now this is going back to 1990s. So I'm sure, you know, they wouldn't do that today because all the soldiers would have PTSD because they're so weak and effeminate. But that's what we used to do back in the day. And they took extreme safety protocols knowing that, well, this is going to be 50% what it's going to be like to be in the field, but not 100%. Here, they could have done the same training, except instead of turning the tracking radar off on the helicopter, they could have just left it on. That's where you simulate and say, okay, if this is a real world simulation, what do you do next? I would reach up and flip off this switch that turns off my radar, so I'm flying under the radar and towers can't see me and I'm hidden, obscured. That is correct. Okay, moving on in the training. They could have done that. What did they do instead? They actually throw the switch. And that to me is highly stupid. And of course, this is what you get out of it. They say, I think what we'll find here in the end is there were multiple things that had any one of them changed, it could have all well changed the outcomes of that evening. Aviation experts have long bemoaned the practice of allowing pilots to navigate on their own, as human error can often lead to tragedy, especially in those exceedingly busy conditions around Reagan Airport. The Transportation Secretary Sean Duffy has since openly criticized the long-standing practice and vowed to get rid of it as he likened it to threading a needle. They also said, and I don't know if they said in this article, but they've had 350-ish close calls with this training type of exercise. So if you've had 350 close calls, how many more do you need till it actually becomes a problem? And this is what actually happened. Look, I don't know if you can say, me personally, is it a female problem? I don't know. I don't know if you can say it's a female problem necessarily, but I think that's part of it. I think that is part of it, number one. Number two, she didn't listen to the commands given to her by the co-pilot that was giving her her training assessment. Number three, she didn't use her own visual awareness. I don't know why. And number four, when you look at the way the military's been for the last 6 or 8 years, when you look at how the FAA has been with diversity and hiring people with severe intellectual or psychiatric disabilities, or hiring people because they're part of the LGHD TV or they're a fat, proud black woman or whatever, we've known for a long time the military has problems, our government has problems, and much of it has to do with this kind of DEI stuff. So it's another example where we kind of called it. We said it was probably a DEI hire, something else happens. And it turns out FAA is full of DEI. Military was full of DEI. Female pilot didn't listen to the male instructor. I don't know. Make of it what you will. Guys, if you like this kind of work, make sure to jump over to betterbachelor.locals.com. You can join us on Rumble. That's where I do Odd Man Out News live much more often. But I'm also doing on Locals, I do football games. We do sports. We do movie nights. We do what else we're doing 80s TV night where we watch a bunch of 80s, 70s, 60s TV shows and reminisce about the good old days and enjoy TV for the way it used to be before it all went woke. And also I do some live streams of games, and it's not about the game. It's more or less really about hanging out with a bunch of guys, having a chat room, having a group room where you guys can share your stories or talk about good recipes or your adventures getting off grid, whatever it is. It's a great group of guys. I hope you come over and join today. All right, guys, I'll leave it there. We'll see you in the next one.